Welcome back to Horseshoe Huddle, everybody. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and joining me is Deputy Editor Jake Arthur. And Jake, the initial 53-man roster has been set for the Indianapolis Colts. Let's get your quick reactions here. What were you most surprised about?
Yeah, the Colts didn't really do anything earth-shattering, but there were a few surprises where you thought this guy might make the roster. The first cut we heard of the day was Philip Lindsay at running back. And honestly, behind Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, he'd been the Colts' best runner throughout the summer. But that move just kind of goes to show you how important special teams was to them. Deion Jackson is currently their other running back, and he's one of their core special teamers. But otherwise, you're looking at Dennis Kelly at offensive tackle. Looked like a really good move when they made it this offseason, but he's been banged up with a knee injury pretty much all summer. So if that move included, they're really hurting on offensive line depth. That's a position we're going to want to pay attention to in the coming days. Curtis Brooks, rookie, we had some high hopes going for him into camp, but just not quite there developmentally yet. And the last kind of surprise, I guess, was Sterling Weatherford, another rookie. The Colts actually brought on 4 rookie undrafted free agents this year under their initial roster. And that could always change as they make waiver claims and everything. But that's quite a bit for one roster move. Sterling Weatherford could have made it 5. Really high ceiling guy, great size, great athleticism. But yeah, just, it maybe not there where they want quite yet on special teams, but I expect him to be someone they bring along on the practice squad. But otherwise, there wasn't much surprising as to what we've been discussing. They kept 3 quarterbacks with Sam Ehlinger just doing the most and really kind of cementing his spot. 6 receivers, Desmond Patman and Mike Strawn came on late. 6 defensive ends as well. Ben Banogu held on there. Ifeadi Odenigbo as well. So a pretty decent looking roster right now, but I think we're really going to want to pay attention to the offensive line and interior defensive line depth as far as waiver claims go.
Well, Jake, you cover the Colts on so many different platforms. You know
Yeah.
this team in and out. How confident do you feel after knowing what the 53-man roster, the initial 53-man roster is?
I still like the team. It's still a very well-rounded group, but there are a couple areas that they absolutely have to address because if the starters go down, they're going to be in a world of hurt otherwise. So they've got to build depth on those lines, like I was mentioning, in order for me to feel a little better going into the season.
All right. And how do you feel about head coach Frank Reich right now? I know, he kind of had some ups and downs in the preseason and throughout
Mm.
training camp, but how do you feel with him going into this season?
Yeah, I think he's still the right head coach for this team. I especially like him a lot better when the Colts have a competent quarterback back
Yeah.
there, so a consistent guy, a heady guy who's still physically capable. So I think pairing Matt Ryan with Frank Reich is going to be, I think Frank will maximize whatever Matt Ryan still has. And honestly, I mean, the Falcons didn't have a great year last year, but the film shows that Matt Ryan still had plenty left in the tank.
Just goes to show you having that confident quarterback can mean more than
Mhm.
Carson Wentz and Frank Reich had that relationship prior to, them both coming to the Colts. But it does go to show you that having the confidence in that quarterback might be a little bit more important when it comes to what happens out on the field.
Yeah, it opens up the playbook completely. And I think the head coach having full confidence in the quarterback position is a huge deal. We've seen it work before and we've seen when it isn't doing so well. So hopefully they're on the right side of things going forward.
All right, Jake. And looking ahead to the next couple of days, obviously there's some guys out on the waiver wires. Is there anyone that you think the Indianapolis Colts should pick up and add to their roster that might be available?
Yeah, so again, I'd mentioned some of those positions I'm really looking at, but honestly, there was a few tight ends I had my
Okay.
eye on because they could use some depth there as well, especially blockers. Because right now, Mo Alley Cox is really their only tight end that you're confident in their blocking abilities. OJ Howard was let go by the Bills. That's an intriguing name. Miller Forrestall is a young guy from Alabama a couple years ago. Devin Asiasi from the Patriots. I think he was an earlier round pick for them. And then looking at the defensive line, Taylor Stallworth is someone who the Colts let walk in free agency last year. Now the Chiefs have parted ways with him. That would be a really appropriate remarriage for them because the Colts are still looking to fill that spot he vacated. So who better to come back and fill that spot than the guy who they used to have there? So That's going to be a move that a lot of people really want to happen.
All right, Jake. Well, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for those quick reactions to the initial 53-man roster. I'm sure there's going to be some more movement that we can chat about in the coming days, but thanks so much.
For sure. Thanks, Kim.